A very important metric for us to understand is that the Word of God indicates to us that treasures should be desired. Yes, that is correct. And in Proverbs 21, verses 20, it says to us, coming from the King James Version, there is treasure to be desired, and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up. The question I want you to ponder as we navigate our developmental exercise is, are you storing up treasures that are desirable, or are you receiving treasures from God and are squandering it all up? If you fall in the category of an individual who is squandering the treasures that you have been given, then you would have been placed in a classification of a foolish individual, a foolish man, a foolish woman. It should not be anyone's intention to be classified as a fool, because we understand that a fool and his money will soon part. Let us get into our topic of conversation. But before, let us breathe a word of prayer. Father God, we thank you for this moment in time as we touch and agree on matters that concerns our existence in this realm, in the area of finances, in the area of enlarging our territory, in the area of development, in the area of extending our reach, as we multiply that which you have given to us. Give us the wisdom to understand the information and the ability to execute it in a manner which is pleasing and brings glory to you, is our prayer. Amen. Majority of us are in a state of flux. When we say that we're in a state of flux, we are talking about in a zone in which we are somewhat comfortable. When you are comfortable, people tend to become complacent. And being complacent means that you're doing things that you're doing, you're refusing to even change if the change presents to you something that is positive. So you are in this state of flux. And this accounts for almost everyone. Everyone becomes comfortable. Even in a discomfort, you become comfortable. But God don't want you to be comfortable in your dysfunction. Because if you get comfortable in your dysfunction, then there is no desire for you to want better. There's no desire for you to improve. There's no desire for you to actualize the full potential that God has embedded within you. Many of us in this state, we fall in the trap of engaging or entertaining learned helplessness, believing that you cannot do anything about your current situation. But the truth is that you can do something about that situation. It only takes the thought of observing that something is wrong, something is not right, something is not adding up. And if you realize that something is wrong, something is off, something is not adding up, then you are now in a position where you can restructure your mental framework, shift your paradigm to doing something that will propel you to get a desire that you are in need of. But many times when we're in this situation, we choose the path of least resistance. We're always trying to look for the easy path. But sometimes the easy path is not the best path for us. And the path that others may have traveled on may not be the path that we as an individual need to travel on. We need to come to the realization that each individual has their own purpose. Each individual has their own gifting. Each individual has their own skill set. Each individual have a different set of tool set that they will be using to maximize their potential, to maximize the gift that God has given to them to give to the world so that we can enjoy our existence in this realm. In order for us to be efficient in maximizing that which we have been given, we have to engage in adequate allocation. And that brings us to a very important rule as it concerns money and money efficiency. It is the 80-20 rule. And this rule will surprise many individuals. This rule will give you guidance and help you to understand why it is that maybe you are having challenges. Maybe you need to just readjust your priorities. So the 80-20 rule is basically the fundamental principles of allocating time appropriately. It's the fundamental rule in which we get an opportunity to manage the resources that God has given to us. How we manage resources based on order of priority, it determines the end outcome. Sometimes it's not that we're not doing the things that need to be done. It is just that we are not doing them in the right order of how they should be done. Hence, we are not receiving the results that are expected, the results that are intended. But when we can come to the realization that if we allocate majority of our effort to that which is giving us majority of the results, then we'll be in a better position. Then we are one step closer to achieving success. So this 80-20 rule of money efficiency, sometimes it's referred to as the Pareto principle, which was established by an Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto, who realized from observation that 80% of the wealth is controlled by 20% of the people in his area where he was in Italy. This basically indicated that most people are basically generally normalized consumer, so who are enriching those who are actually producing. So if you are a consumer, you are 80%. When you are a producer, then you fall in the category of that 20%. So you have to decide whether you want to be the consumer or you want to be the producer. But if you want to be the vital few, you have to be in the top 20%. If you want to be in the trivial many, then you can be in the bottom 80%. So this observation of 80% of the wealth in the Italian community being controlled by 20% of the population is not an isolated situation. We see this coming down the line in different industries because as it relates to healthcare, we see that 80% of the cost of healthcare comes from about 20% of the people. 80% of the revenue from most businesses come from about 20% of the products. 80% of problems usually just come from 20% of the parts. 80% of the cost baseline comes from approximately 20% of the supplier. This can be applied into almost any situation. This is a fundamental and important idea to understand productivity, to understand how the world has been structured. But in understanding this concept, this theory, which has proven in real world application, we need to now position it in such a way that it can apply to our finances? How can this allow us to better manage our financial resources, to put us in a position where we can enjoy the gift that God has given unto us? And that is what we want to do. So most of the persons lose out on the big picture because they major in the minor and they minor in the major. And when they tend to do that, what happens is that their efforts are not compounding in a way that is meaningful and significant to evoke the results that they actually need. And when this happens, we find ourselves in a predicament. And when we're in this kind of a predicament, we feel frustrated, we feel burdened down, we feel as though we are a fish trying to survive on land, or a fish out of water. So it causes you to feel as though your efforts are useless. But if those efforts were organized in such a way that you focus on the major and leave the minor, then the effects of those efforts can be magnified. And that is what I want you to consider to do. When we can position ourselves in this manner, we are better set for success. But in order for us to be positioned on this journey, we have to take actionable steps. We have to put things in place so that we can reap the rewards. And in doing that, I want us to have written goals. And you may be saying to yourself, how does this come into play? Why would I need to have goals? Well, in order to know if you are moving from point A to point B and you're reaching where you need to go, then you need to have measures in place so that you can justify your movements and your progress. And that is why goals are important. So I want you to write down 10 goals, and then all you need to do is to accomplish one of these 10 goals that you have written down in the next 24 hours. Whichever goal that you so choose. In choosing, I want you to do something else. I want you to consider which of these 10 goals will have the greatest impact on your life. Yes, think about it and write it down. And just try to accomplish that goal. You need to know this, especially if you desire to be successful. How can you measure success if you never had a goal, if you never had an intention prior? How can you know if you are reaching where you need to be? Is it that you are just a wandering generality? You don't need to be a wandering generality. You need to have your goals so that you can reach them and then exceed them. Then what I want you to do is to pick the second most important item on that list. After you have picked the first and most meaningful item to you that will change the trajectory of your life, I want you to pick the second most important item on that list. In doing this, you would have now realized the most important 20% of your goal. Because if you have 10 and you selected 2, that is the most important 20%. This is important. Next, you should choose to work on these goals as much as you can, because it will lead you to success that actually is possible. And remember that the goals that you have may not be the goals that someone else has. What you have written down may not be what someone else has written down, because each of us, as we are different human beings, we have different personalities, we have different desires. And because our desires are different and we have different gifting and different calling, then our goals will also be different. I don't want you to just go around being a busy bee. I want you to be intentional about your action. So as you move into the next phase, I want you to choose to work on these goals as much as you can, because this is what is going to lead to your success. People who are busy all day long doing work, working, but not accomplishing things. They are busy, yes, but they are busy on low value tasks which are not really contributing significantly to the big picture. And when you are so busy, so consumed about the low value tasks that are not adding up to the bigger picture, you fall behind, because those tasks could have been delegated to others, while you focus on that which is important in propelling towards the bigger picture. Hence, these individuals often find themselves being burned out and unaccomplished. And when you're unaccomplished, you also feel dissatisfied. So, what you should be doing is stop working on tasks which are low value or of no value to the big picture, as you position yourself to reach the destination which you are having outlined in your goal plan, your actionable plan. You have that already outlined. So once you have that written down, you know exactly what it is that you want to do. You have the plans, you know the steps that you need to take to reach those plans. You have them on paper. Now we're going to move towards them. So now, moving away from procrastination. Because sometimes we have our goals, sometimes we have good intentions, sometimes we desire to do the things that God has given us the desire to do, but we procrastinate. 1 year pass, 2 year pass, we haven't written that book. 3 year pass, we're still thinking about writing that book. 4 years pass, we haven't started that business. 5 years pass, we haven't reached where we need to be. 6 years pass, people who we should be helping or who are requiring our blessing to move to the next level are still waiting. 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, and then at the end of the life, there's a life of misery. I don't want that for you. I want your life to be one that is filled with jubilation, filled with meaningful memories. And in order to do that, we have to prepare ourselves for the future that we so desire. We have many value added propositions, but it's important that you follow the guidelines. You follow the goals which you have written down. You have to be accountable to someone. You have to be accountable to yourself. If you say that you're going to do something, then do it. If you say you're going to exercise, then get up and start exercising. If you say you're going to read your Bible more often, I think it is imperative that you should be able to rely on yourself. Other persons are counting on you, but if you cannot count on yourself, why should they count on you? If you operate from this mental framework in understanding that 80-20 rule and prioritizing that 20% to get 80%, then your company will realize the difference. Your organization that you work for will realize the difference. Yourself will realize the difference. You'll feel more accomplished. And guess what? Even your finances will realize the difference, because your bank account will say something different from what it was saying prior, because you're putting in that work and you're getting actual results. The hardest tasks are normally the ones which have the most value proposition. But guess what? Many persons tend to leave the hard task for last when they are burned out, when they're tired, when they can't invest as much. It is easier to save than invest. However, guess what? Saving will never take you to places that investing can take you. Saving will never make you rich or wealthy. Investing will do that. Saving will never, ever be able to do the things that investing can do. Yes, savings may be what the average person has been taught to do. But if everybody is doing it, then that there becomes basic. And that there means that something is wrong with it. Because just being average is not adequate, especially for a person of God. In order to be the head, you cannot be average. I know that you must, in some instances, feel as though life may have given you a lemon, but what to do? Whatever position that you find yourself in, you have to make the best of that position. So you may have taken some bad turns, you may have misappropriated your financial resources, you may have put your family in a bad position, an unfavorable position, but it's not too late to make a change. So when beginning on your financial and money making journey, think about the long-term implications instead of the short-term gratification. When you can do this, you will operate with principles of dignity, principles of fiduciary duties, especially when it comes on to the finances, principles of integrity. You will be trustworthy because you're in it for the long haul and not just for the get in and get out mentality. There's a time and a place for everything. But at the end of the day, as people of God, we have to be the ones to set the foundation, doing not only things that are right, but doing it in a righteous manner. In doing this, you will be well positioned to enjoy your end of life experience. But guess what? We don't believe in the end of life as the world presented to us to be retired. Retirement is nowhere in the Word of God. Retirement cannot be found to be justifiable. Retirement is a word that was created to appease a people so that they can work throughout the whole of their life and forget to live, with the intent that they will enjoy what they have worked for at the end of their life when they have no energy to enjoy and embrace it. Life is here today. Today you're here, tomorrow you're not. So it is in your best interest to position yourself in such a manner that you can enjoy life in this moment as you move forward. I want us to resist the temptation to be clearing up the small things first. You have to watch the numbers, you have to watch the analytics. This is the only way that you will be able to survive. What generates the most reward should be in alignment with your priority focus. Just be sure that you never deviate. Remember, the little things will multiply. So you have one little problem, the next little problem come, and the problems just keep compounding. And this here is a distraction. So you don't want to be busy with distraction, because being busy with distraction, you may have distraction for 40 years, 50 years, and you never accomplish what God has placed inside of you, because you don't have the time to sit down, to plan, to organize, to strategize, to move forward. You're so tired, you're so consumed with the distractions. But until you are uncomfortable, you will not want change. You will not want to be shaken. You will not want to take that leap of faith to become the individual that God desires you to become. And that is why we cannot become comfortable in a dysfunctional situation. So when you realize the truth that God has been calling you to something greater, position yourself to figure that vision out so that you can enjoy that which God created you to present to the world. If you start your journey with low value tasks, you'll make this an habit as you become comparable to the horse that is walking around in a circle on the grinding mill, making movements without positional progress. Did you know that 80% of the rich people have actually one goal that they work on every single day? You should not be surprised that poor people, only about 20% of them actually have one goal. However, guess what? They don't work on it very often, hence the reason for their state of depravity, the state of poverty. You have to have your mind recalibrated, repositioned, so that you can enjoy the blessings that God has given unto you. Poverty is created because of a lack of knowledge. Yes, the Word of God says the poor will always be among us. The poor being those who are in darkness. The poor being those who don't know. But once you have been given light, you now are in a position in which you know. And in knowing, that means that you cannot embrace poverty any longer. The mindset needs to be changed to reach where you are capable of reaching. If you make it to this point, if you made it this far, I just want to tell you to do what wealthy people do. Pick a big goal and work on it every single day. You will see how fast your life changes. If you don't desire to be financially free, to be financially independent, to enjoy financial abundance, to do better, then maybe, just maybe, you're in the wrong place. I don't want you to just listen. I want you to do. Because it is in doing that the trajectory of your life will change. Don't just do it for yourself, but do it thinking about those who are to come. So now go and make some money with the knowledge of the 80-20 rule. And remember, focus on the big picture. So how are we going to make that money? We need to have the money plan. Do you want that money plan? Think about it. I sure hope that you are serious about being successful on this financial journey. Success is defined as accomplishing a goal or the accomplishment of your goal. How can you determine that you have been successful? First, you would have to have a goal and then you'd have to accomplish a goal. Then you have measures of markers that you can use to determine if you were successful. This would mean that you are specific in your mental direction. Hence, you were able to accomplish something that you had set your mind to. Many persons have accomplished many goals, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Maybe the circumstances forced them to accomplish those goals, or maybe the environment facilitated the accomplishment of those goals, whether they were imposed on them by their parents in terms of going to school, whether they're imposed by their family members, their significant others, whosoever was meaningful in the imposition of those goals upon them. But those goals were accomplished nevertheless. But the goals that I want you to really be serious about are the ones that are embedded within you. Your life only begins to become a great life when you clearly identify what it is that you actually want and you make a plan to achieve that which you desire. And not only just making a plan, but you actually work at that plan. You have to position yourself. You have heard that if you fail to plan, then you actually plan to fail. The reality is that this statement is true. You don't have to plan for your whole life. You don't have to plan for your whole future. But you can actually start putting plans in place so that you can extend them over time. I want you to be sure that there is someone who is making a plan for your life if you decide that you are not going to make a plan for your life. You may not understand what is happening, but just as though someone is expecting you to be born, someone is expecting you to come and work on their behalf in their company, adding your 1% to enrich them. So if you don't have a plan for your life, someone else has a plan already for you with that job, which is pre-planned, pre-positioned for you to take, so that you can be distracted from the gifting that is within you. So, you have to know how you want to navigate your life. Do you want to work in alignment with someone's plan, or do you want to execute on the plan that God has given to you, especially if it is not in alignment with the plan that you're currently engaged in? It is serious, but I just want to say that it is time that you take control of your life, especially your money life. And we are going to start that process by setting goals. Stick around as we get into the goal setting process, which is pretty simple. Now, the moment that you have been patiently anticipating, step one, we're going to set some goals. I want you to decide what you want in four key areas of your life. I want you to do this for me. Use idealization. I want you to create the ideal situation. Even if it may seem impossible, I want you to create it in your mind. Then I want you to write it down. Because it may seem that way right now because you are not there. But it doesn't mean that it is impossible. Life has a way of magnifying our plans, making them more gigantia than expected. So the areas that I want you to focus on is income. Number one, yes, income. How much money do you want to earn this year, next year, the next 5 years from today? I want you to even write down today's date. How much money do you want to earn this year, next year, the next 5 years? Write it down. The next area of focus I want you to think about is your family. What kind of lifestyle do you want to create for yourself and your family? Do you want to have to go to work every single day? Having your wife working if you're a man? Can't be able to take vacation, your wife is pregnant and she has to go to work until the baby is delivered? Having your kids going to public school when you know that the education that is being offered is not adequate or fitting based on where you want them to be? Do you want to be able to fly to a different country at your convenience? What kind of life do you want? What kind of facility you want your family to grow up in? Do you want them to grow in a small dwelling? Do you want them to have a large estate? I want you to think about it in an idealistic situation. Number three, health. How would your health be different if it was perfect in every single way? Will you no longer have that cough? Will you no longer have that weight? Will your heart be healthy? Will you no longer have erectile dysfunction? Will you have your libido back? Will your wife be able to enjoy your company once again as when you were younger? How would your health be different if it were perfect? I want you to think about all of these things because these are important things for you to know. So you can set your goal, you can put your position down so that you know exactly what it is that you are working towards. The next thing that I want you to look at is number four, network. How much do you want to have and accumulate in the course of your working life? Yes, just take about 30 seconds and think about it. Write down three most important goals to you right now. Whatever comes to mind, the three most important goals to you, just write them down right now. And while you write down, we'll move to step two. Step two is very important for us to do. We don't want to just have the goals in our minds, we want to write them down. So step two is simple, writing it down. No one can know what is in your head, and no one will be able to hold you accountable when you don't write it down. Most people don't like writing things down because when they write it down, they know that they were delinquent and they don't want the memories of the failure to be present because they don't desire to be accountable. Your memories at time will lapse, and in some instances fail. Don't tell me you will remember. I want you to just write down those goals. Now, this is how you're going to approach the goal setting process. In writing down, it has to be clear, it has to be specific, it has to be detailed, it has to be measurable. All right? So many persons use a SMART principle in order to write down their goals, and this does work. Did you know that 3% of adults have written goals? Approximately. And guess what? Almost everyone else works for them. So everybody's goals is going to be different. And yes, your goals may be in alignment with other person's goal, and that is where community comes into play. And some goals may be out of alignment. That is where individuality comes into play. Not because your goals are not in direct alignment with someone else's goal, it doesn't mean that what they're doing is wrong and what you're doing is right. It just means that you are on different paths in that season. Now, let's move to step 3. Once you have those goals written down, I want you to indicate a deadline. Yes, set a deadline. This will psychologically activate the cooperation of your subconscious to get into gear and start the process of putting measures in place so that you can achieve them within the time specified before or on schedule. Peradventure you're an overachiever, guess what? You can always have stretch goals. So if you achieve your goal, then you can move it further, give yourself more to accomplish. So you stretch those goals out. Then we move into step 4. We have to identify obstacles. So in step 4, what you want to do is you will get resistance. Yes, we understand that. And you need to plan ahead to identify what obstacles you will have to overcome in order to achieve your goals. Simply, you'll need to identify why is it that you are not in this moment at your goal. What is preventing you from achieving your goal right now? Could it be that you're not utilizing the 80-20 rule? Could it be some constraints? Better yet, use this rule to identify the constraints. Use the 80-20 rules to identify the constraint. What is 80% of the reason why you are not at the goal that you need to be in this very moment? 80% of the reasons are usually holding you back from achieving your goal. That there 80% is usually on the inside. The 20% of reason is usually on the outside. And there's little that you can actually do about that 20%. So just work on the 80%, which is on the inside. And focus your attention on self-development as you move into actualizing. Now, step 5. So we're going to identify needs for achievement. So we're going to identify the knowledge that we need. We're going to get the information, the skills that we need to achieve these goals, especially identify the skills that are important for us to be in the top 10% of our field. Yes, whatever field that you're in, you have to try to be in the top 10%. So you have to position yourself in such a manner that you are top tier. And yes, it is possible for you to be in the top 10%. But the question is, do you truly want to be in the top 10%? For me, it is my desire to be in the 0.01% in my field. And yes, I have already achieved that 1% mark in my field. Now, let's move into step 6. Identify people. If you have never been where you desire to go, what I want to do is to find people who have been there, who are there on this journey, and try to liaison with them so they can give you some guidance, some help, some support. So I want you to make a list of every person in your life that, you know, has been where you have desire of being, so that you can get some guidance. And if you're charting a new territory or creating a new lane, then there will be no guidance. You will have to create that. You will have to walk those first steps independently. Step 7, you'll have to identify things that you need to achieve the goal. So you're going to combine the obstacles that you would have to overcome, the knowledge and the skills that you have to develop, and the people whose cooperation you will require. So you're going to list every single step that you can. Think of that, and then you're going to have to build a strong foundation of knowing what it is that you need, putting things into perspective, and then we're going to convert that list in step 8 into an action plan. So we're going to put things in sequence. What do you have to do before you do something else? And what order makes the best sense? So prioritization, what is most important to what is least important. So this planning is about 20%, the goal achievement process, right? 80% comes from that 20%, which is the planning, because you already have a plan and a system in place. Number 9, organize the list into steps. So you're going to plan each day, each week, each month. You're going to do all these things in advance. You're going to plan each month at the beginning of the month. You're going to plan each week before the week begins. You're going to plan each day the evening of the day that is coming to its close. So you're going to have a goal and a plan which will increase your likelihood of achieving your goal by 10 times, which is 1,000%. And the most important step is step 10, which is the execution. So you're going to select number 1, your most important goal, your most important factor, your most important player, your most valuable positioning in your listing. What is the most impactful? What is the most significant of your list of goals? You're going to select that one, the most important task, and you're going to apply the 80-20 principle to all your goals so that you can increase your wealth. You can actually maximize based on what you have put in place, what you have written down. So during the process, you will develop self-discipline. You'll understand restraint as you stay focused by the definition that you have created. Understanding the majority purpose should be in alignment with your vision. Before we go, just one more thing to remember. Visualize your goal as though it has already been achieved. This will be the best way to bring your mental and your spiritual reality into the physical realm. God desires for you to be successful. God desires for you to enjoy that which He has made available. But in order for you to enjoy it, you have to be adequately positioned. And in being positioned for the enjoyment, you have to ensure that you utilize all the resources that have been given to you. I hope that this information was meaningful. It may have been, for some, insightful as to how the goal setting process occurs. And I want you to be able to set goals responsibly. I wanted you to do this activity because if you understand where you are, you realize where you need to be, you put things in place, then a year from now, you can go back and say that I was here, but now I am here. And I am yet to reach X based on what you have placed down. So if you can focus on these 4 areas, at least these 4 areas, then you will be in a good position. Number 1, your income. How much do you want to earn this year, next year, the next 5 years from today? How much do you want to earn? You can factor in inflation, you can factor in all these variables. Put a number. Put a number. If the number looks big, it's not big enough. There's no number that is too big for you. Your family. We have this life to live. We have this life to enjoy. Our family is one of the most important things to us. What kind of lifestyle do you want to create for your family, for your friends, for those who you love, for those who are dependent on you? I want you to think about, especially if you're a man. When you're a man, there is so much burden, so much responsibility that is placed on your shoulder. Everyone is depending on you. You have to stay alive so that other persons can live. But having all the money, having all the wealth, having all the riches, having all the resources without the health, that doesn't make sense. If your health were perfect, if it's not perfect, what can you do today to get it to that state of perfection? These are some of the things I want you to think about. Your network. How much do you want to save and accumulate in the course of your working life? What business venture do you want to start? How many companies do you plan to sell? Do you plan to engage in the venture capital market? Think about these things. I pray and I wish you a success as you set goals that are reasonable. And you not only set the goals, but you actually execute on accomplishing those goals. Document this date and see you in the next sitting. Until then, be blessed.